The Gong Farmer. A life among shadows, the pale light of dawn breaks over the sleepy medieval village. The first rays of sunlight struggle to penetrate the dense fog that clings to the earth, casting everything in a muted, gray glow. The sharp call of crows rings out from the trees as they flutter, restless, their wings slicing the air in search of something unseen. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of water flowing in the stream that winds through the village. In the shadow of a small, squat stone house by the edge of the settlement, a man stirs in his sleep. The bed is nothing more than a pile of straw, roughly piled together in the far corner of the room, with a thin blanket of worn wool barely covering his body. His name is Ealdred, but in the village, he is simply known as the Gong Farmer. A title as unremarkable as the life he leads. His work is essential, though none would say so to his face. Ealdred's duty is one that no one speaks of openly, a task too unspeakable for most to comprehend. His job is to clean out the privies, the latrines of the village. His hands, raw and calloused from years of handling the muck of others, are the first to rise to greet the day. He pulls on a pair of leather boots, cracked and stiff from the countless days spent trudging through filth. The air in his small cottage is cold, damp with a moisture that seems to permeate every stone and beam, but he does not flinch. He has long since ceased to notice the stench that pervades his world. The day stretches before him like an endless cycle, a repetition of tasks that demand his attention but never offer any sense of reward. The Gong Farmer's life is a life of service, unnoticed and unsung. He is an invisible figure in the village, a ghost who moves between the houses in the dark hours of morning, never seen but always felt. No one thanks him for his work. No one greets him with a smile or a word of recognition. But Ealdred knows his place in the world, and his duties are clear. The earth is cold under his feet as he steps outside. The fog is thicker now, clinging to the ground like a heavy blanket. His breath rises in pale clouds as he begins his trek through the village. The narrow lanes are empty, save for a few early risers heading to market or the fields. The smell of freshly baked bread drifts from a nearby bakery, its warmth an almost cruel reminder of the comfort that exists just beyond his reach. But Ealdred does not stop. His destination is clear: the privies. Each building in the village has its own latrine, a small structure built at the farthest corner of the property. It is a necessary evil. The waste of human life must go somewhere, after all, and it is Ealdred's job to collect it. With a large wooden bucket slung over his shoulder, he begins a grim task of emptying the privies, one by one. His hands are steady, his movements mechanical. The waste he gathers is a mix of human excrement, animal droppings, and anything else that has been discarded without thought. It is foul, unpleasant work, but it is necessary, and it is his to do. As he moves from house to house, Ealdred feels the weight of his invisibility. The villagers pass him by without a second glance, eyes averted as if he were not even there. They know he is the one who takes their waste, but they do not acknowledge him. In their eyes, he is less than human, a creature who does not belong to their world. They do not see the way his hands tremble sometimes when he lifts the bucket, the way his stomach churns at the smell that clings to his skin. They do not see the exhaustion in his eyes, the silent toll that this life has taken on him. To them, he is a necessary burden, a shadow that will fade the moment his work is done. But there are moments, fleeting, small moments, when Ealdred catches a glimpse of something beyond the filth and the grime, a moment when he is not simply a servant, but a witness to the lives around him. A woman in the market offers him a brief smile, her eyes kind but distant. A child watches him from a window, her curious gaze lingering for a moment before she pulls away, as if ashamed of her interest. These small encounters, these brief flashes of humanity, are enough to sustain him through the long hours of isolation. His work, though demeaning in the eyes of others, is crucial to the functioning of the village. The latrines, when left unattended, overflow, and the stench becomes unbearable. Disease spreads quickly in such conditions, and the village could not survive without men like Ealdred. Yet it is a life of constant sacrifice. His hands are never clean, his clothes always stained, his body always marked by the work he does. He lives in the shadows, a servant to the needs of the village, and he is no more than the muck he carries. As he empties the final privy of the day, Ealdred pauses. He is standing on the edge of the village now, looking out at the distant fields and forests. The bell of the village church tolls, marking the hour. The village is coming alive with the sound of people stirring, beginning their day. The children are running through the streets, their laughter echoing in the air, while the women gather around the well to exchange gossip. Life continues, as it always does, unaware of the work that has made it possible. Ealdred stands for a long moment, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. There is a quiet dignity in his task, though none will ever recognize it. His work is unspoken, unsung, but it is his, and it is necessary. He does not expect thanks. He does not expect recognition. His life has been a series of small sacrifices, each one blending into the next until they form the quiet rhythm of his existence. And yet, there is a part of him, a small, flickering part, that wonders what it would be like to be seen, to be acknowledged, even for a moment. The wind picks up, stirring the leaves of the trees and carrying the faint scent of pine through the air. The sun is rising higher now, casting long shadows across the land. Ealdred turns away from the village and begins his walk back to his cottage. The work is done for the day, but his life is far from over. There will be more privies to clean, more waste to carry away. The cycle will continue, as it always has, and he will remain a shadow in the background, performing his duties in silence. But as he walks, there is a quiet strength in his steps, a sense of resolve that comes from knowing his place in the world. He is a part of something greater than himself, even if no one else sees it. He is the invisible backbone of the village, the one who ensures that the land remains habitable, that the people can go about their lives without the burden of filth weighing them down. He is a servant, yes, but he is also a guardian of the village's survival, and in his heart, he carries the weight of that truth. Ealdred reaches his cottage as the village begins to bustle with activity. He steps inside, the door creaking on its hinges as he enters. The small room is dim, lit only by the faint light that filters through the cracks in the walls. He sets the bucket down by the door and collapses onto the straw bed, his body aching with the strain of the day's work. His hands tremble as he pulls off his boots, but there's a moment of relief as the weight of the world lifts from his shoulders. He is alone, but he is not lonely. The silence in the room is a comfort, a reminder that he is not bound by the expectations of others. He is free, in his own way, to live the life he has chosen, or the life that has chosen him. The village bell tolls again, signaling the midday hour. Ealdred closes his eyes, letting the sounds of the world drift away. In the quiet of the room, he can almost hear the heartbeat of the village itself, the rhythm of life that carries him forward day after day, into the shadows and back again. And so, his work continues, unseen but never unimportant. He is a part of the land, a part of the cycle that binds them all together. Ealdred may never be remembered by name, but his legacy is written in the silent sacrifices he makes, in the invisible work that keeps the village alive. He is the gong farmer, and in his quiet existence, he holds the weight of the world on his shoulders, unseen but ever present. The chill of early morning wraps itself around the monastery like a heavy shroud. The air is thick with fog, and the faint light of dawn barely penetrates the high, narrow windows of the stone building. Inside, the sound of footsteps echoes through the cold, empty hallways, their rhythmic tapping a stark contrast to the silence that dominates the air. The cloistered grounds of the abbey are still, as though even time has paused in reverence for the sacred duties performed within these walls. In the dimness of the abbey's infirmary, a lone figure stirs. Brother Oswin, his name known only to the other monks and the few villagers who dare to approach the monastery, steps from the shadows into flickering light of a single candle. His hands, pale and thin, are steady as they lift a metal basin from the table. The faint scent of herbs and old blood fills the air, a mixture both haunting and sacred in its familiarity. Brother Oswin is a bleeder, one of the most feared and misunderstood figures in the medieval world. His duty is as ancient as the monastery itself, to drain blood from the living and the dead alike, in the belief that the release of blood will restore balance to the body's humors. He stands at the center of the room, staring down at the body that rests on the cold, stone slab. The figure, an elderly man from the village, is pale, his life already nearly spent. The monks have already prayed over him, but Brother Oswin's work is a final act of both mercy and ritual. It is said that in the balance of humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, lies the key to health, and that blood, when drained in the proper way, can heal the body or at least hasten its departure. Brother Oswin has performed this task countless times, but it never becomes easier. His heart, hardened by years of training and discipline, remains untouched by the gore he handles, but a small part of him still shudders at the sight of a lifeless body. It is not the blood that disturbs him, nor the stillness of the body, but the weight of the finality of it all. He has seen men and women, old and young, come through the Abbey's doors, their lives ebbing away despite his best efforts. His work is an act of mercy, but it is also an acknowledgement of death's inevitable reach. The room smells faintly of candle wax, incense, and the pungent tang of blood. The flickering flame casts long shadows on the stone walls as Brother Oswin prepares for the delicate procedure. He carefully sharpens his scalpel, his movements precise and practiced, as though he is preparing for a sacred rite. Every motion is deliberate, almost reverential. This is not a task he takes lightly. The body before him, though lifeless, is still a vessel of the divine, a part of God's creation. It is a task that requires both reverence and detachment, a dance with death itself. As he makes the first incision, the blood flows slowly, as if reluctant to leave its host. He collects the blood in a basin, the sight of it both repulsive and familiar. The act of bleeding a body is a precise, controlled process designed to bring balance, though the results are often unpredictable. It is said that blood must be drawn from the veins in a particular way, or else the humors may become more unbalanced, making the patient's condition worse. The method is as much art as science, and the line between healing and harm is thin. The coldness of the stone floor beneath his feet sends a shiver through him as Brother Oswin works in silence. His breath, shallow and steady, forms a cloud in the chilly air. He can hear the distant echo of monks chanting their morning prayers in the chapel, the rhythm of their voices grounding him in the sacredness of his task. The process is slow, methodical, as he drains the blood, watching as the life force seeps from the man's body. He focuses on the rhythm of his actions, blocking out the thoughts that occasionally threaten to intrude. Brother Oswin is a man divided, torn between the sacredness of his work and the knowledge that his hands are the instruments of death. He has come to understand that his role is not to question the outcome, but to perform his duty with the utmost dedication and detachment. His life, like the others around him, is dedicated to a singular purpose: service to God. The lives of the villagers, the monks, even his own life, are but fleeting moments in the grand scheme of eternity. Death, to him, is not an enemy, but a passage, a natural part of the cycle. It is in the acceptance of that truth that Brother Oswin finds peace. His thoughts drift as he continues his work. He reflects on the years he has spent at the monastery, the years of study, of prayer, of silence. When he first arrived, as a young man with little more than a desire to serve, he had been full of questions, full of doubts. But now, as an elder of the Abbey, he has come to understand that faith is not about the answers, but a willingness to serve, even in the absence of understanding. The mysteries of life and death are not for him to comprehend. His duty is simple: to perform the rituals, to care for the body and the soul, to walk the thin line between life and death with dignity. The incision is finished. Brother Oswin steps back and wipes his brow with the back of his hand, his face flushed from the effort. He stands in silence for a moment, gazing at the body. The blood is now fully drained, and the man's skin has taken on a waxen, lifeless quality. There is no returning from this. The villagers, once they are notified, will come to collect the body and prepare it for burial. The soul, freed from its earthly prison, will ascend to whatever judgment awaits it. Brother Oswin's role in the process is now complete, but the weight of the silence lingers in the room. The hum of the distant chants in the chapel still drifts through the walls, but now it sounds distant, detached, as though the Abbey itself is holding its breath. Brother Oswin's hand trembles as he sets the scalpel down on the table, and for a moment he allows himself to be fully present in the moment. He feels the coldness of the air against his skin, the heaviness of the task he has just performed, and the weight of his solitude. The rituals are sacred, but they do not fill the emptiness he feels inside. There is a moment of reflection, a small pause between the sacred and the profane. Brother Oswin thinks of the lives he has touched, the patients who have passed through his hands, both living and dead. He has bled the bodies of the sick, the dying, and the healthy, all in the name of restoring balance. But what of the soul? What of the heart? Does his work, so mechanical in its execution, do anything to heal the pain that lives within? The silence in the room is deafening now, and his thoughts race. He thinks of the villagers, those who still seek his help when they are ill. He is their last hope, the final intervention between life and death. Yet, he is a figure of fear, a symbol of the inevitable end. Some come to him with gratitude in their eyes, knowing that his work will bring them relief, while others come with reluctance, as though death itself is written on his brow. He is a man who walks with death, and it is a role that isolates him from the rest of humanity. But Brother Oswin knows that this is his calling. It is not for him to question the ways of the world or the mysteries of life and death. He has learned over the years that there is beauty in this work, a strange grace in the delicate balance between life and death. It is a life of service, of silence, of unseen sacrifice. His hands may be stained with blood, but it is a stain of purpose, not of guilt. And in the quiet spaces between life and death, he finds a deeper understanding of the sacredness of existence. As the final bell tolls for the hour of prayer, Brother Oswin closes his eyes and breathes deeply. The task is complete, and the rest of the day awaits him. The abbey, once again, is filled with the low hum of the monks' voices, the sounds of the world continuing on around him. But for Brother Oswin, there is only the quiet peace of a life lived in service to something greater than himself. A life lived between the living and the dead, where the blood that flows through the body is both the source of life and the harbinger of its end. He steps away from the slab, his heart steady and his hand steady. In the shadows of the abbey, he is both a servant and a witness, and the delicate dance between life and death continues, as it always has, in the silence of the monastery. The early morning light struggles to break through the dense fog that clings to the cobbled streets of the village. The day begins quietly, as it always does, with the soft rustling of the wind through the trees, the faraway crowing of roosters, and the faint creak of wooden carts as they trundle along the narrow lanes. The air smells of damp earth, of wet stones, and the lingering scent of last night's rain. But beneath these natural scents, there is something else, something that hangs in the air like an unspoken truth, the odor, decay of rot, of waste. In the farthest corner of the village, tucked away between two old, leaning buildings, there is a figure dressed in dark, tattered clothes. The man's name is Galvin, though in the eyes of the villagers, he is simply the dung collector. His face is obscured by a rough woolen hood, his hands thick and calloused, stained permanently with the grime of his labor. His job is one of the most essential, yet the most reviled in the village. Galvin is the one who cleans the streets, the alleyways, and the privies, collecting the waste of both humans and animals, hauling it away to the village's designated cesspit at the edge of the woods. It is a task that no one else will perform. The villagers, with their warm hearts and soft beds, would rather turn a blind eye to the filth that accumulates in the corners of their lives. The manure, the refuse, the waste, it is left for men like Galvin to handle. He is the silent servant, the invisible figure who bears the burden of his community's unpleasantness. He is the one who must rise before the sun, when the world is still wrapped in shadow, and gather the refuse that no one else will touch. Today, as on every day, the task feels no less demeaning, no less heavy. Galvin stretches his stiff limbs as the first light of day hits his small cottage. The smell of the earth and the dampness of the stone walls fill his nostrils as he pulls on his boots. He grabs a large wooden cart and moves toward the village's heart. He knows that even now, there are piles of filth waiting to be moved. Each pile, each bucket of waste, carries the weight of the lives that have lived in this village, the lives that have come and gone, leaving behind their refuse for others to deal with. The village is still sleepy, the streets empty save for a few dogs sniffing around for scraps. The sky is a pale wash of gray, with only the faintest hint of sunlight breaking through clouds. As he moves, Galvin's footsteps are soft on the wet stones, his cart creaking as it rolls behind him. He passes the homes of the villagers, their doors shut tight, their windows dark. The only sound is the occasional rustle of a wind-blown leaf, the faint murmur of a distant brook. Galvin's work is unnoticed, unsung. He is the nameless figure in the background, the one whose presence is felt only when the task is left undone. The smell of uncollected waste would soon seep through the village, becoming unbearable. It would choke the air, making it impossible to breathe, to live. But as long as Galvin does his work, no one notices. The villagers go about their day, paying him no more mind than the mud beneath their feet. He is, in their eyes, a necessary evil, a part of the world that exists solely to serve their needs. To them, he is no more than the refuse he collects, an afterthought, a thing to be ignored. He arrives at the first house, the stench of the privy already wafting through cracks in the door. The task ahead is familiar, a grim routine that has become his life. He pushes the door open, his hands shaking as he reaches for the wooden bucket. The smell is overpowering, a mixture of human waste, spoiled food, and animal droppings. The muck is thick, and the process of collecting it requires both strength and patience. Galvin works quickly, emptying the privy into the large cart, moving from house to house as the sun rises higher in the sky. The streets begin to stir with life, but no one sees him. No one acknowledges the work he is doing. To the villagers, he is invisible. As he moves through the streets, Galvin's thoughts begin to wander. He thinks of the years he has spent in this village, of the people he has served, of the life he has led. He was born here, raised in the same dirt-streaked streets, but somehow he has always felt apart. He has never been part of the village's warmth, never shared in the laughter and joy that fills the homes of others. He is a man of the shadows, a man whose presence is only felt when there is work to be done, when there is waste to be removed. As a child, he had dreamed of something more, something grander, something filled with purpose. He had wanted to be a farmer like his father, or a merchant with his own stall in the market. But those dreams had slipped away, carried off by the same wind that had carried away the lives of so many others. Now, he is a man whose labor is invisible, whose name is forgotten the moment his task is complete. He is the one who bears the weight of the village's dirt, and no one remembers it once it is gone. His life is a series of small, unnoticed sacrifices, a string of days that fade into each other like the murk of the cesspits he tends. Despite this, Galvin has learned to accept his role. There is a strange solace in the repetition of it all. The work is hard, but it is simple. It does not require thought, only endurance. And in this, there is peace. He does not have to think about the intricacies of the world, about the complexities of relationships, or the frustrations of ambition. All that matters is the task at hand. The dung must be collected. The streets must be cleaned. The village must continue to function. It is a small, humble existence, but it is an existence nonetheless. As he moves from house to house, gathering the refuse and hauling it away, Galvin reflects on the peculiar nature of his work. It is a necessary task, to be sure, but it is one that no one would choose. And yet, in the silence of the early mornings, he has come to understand that his role in the village is not insignificant. Without him, the village would fall into filth and decay. The streets would be choked with waste, the air unbearable. The villagers would suffer. Galvin stops for a moment, looking out over the village. The sun is rising higher now, casting long shadows on the streets. The houses are coming to life, the smoke from chimneys rising into the sky, the sound of children's laughter echoing in the distance. It is a peaceful scene, one that Galvin knows he will never fully be a part of. But there is a certain satisfaction in knowing that, in his small way, he is contributing to it. He is the one who ensures that the village remains clean, that life can continue without the burden of waste. It is then that he hears the faint sound of footsteps behind him. He turns, and for a moment, he sees a figure, a woman, walking toward him with a small basket in hand. It is Anna, the baker's wife, a woman whose presence in the village is as familiar as the morning sun. She is carrying bread, fresh from the oven, the smell of it filling the air around them. "Good morning, Galvin," she says with a small smile, her voice warm but cautious. "I see you're about your work again." Galvin nods, the words caught in his throat. He has learned to be silent in the presence of others, to let his work speak for him. His work is all that defines him, and it is a work that requires no thanks. But there is something in Anna's voice, something in the simple acknowledgement of his labor, that stirs something inside him. "Morning," he replies, his voice low and gravelly. It is the only word he speaks to her, to anyone. The rest of his day is filled with silence, with the noise of the cart's wheels and the steady rhythm of his labor. Anna lingers for a moment, her gaze lingering on him with something akin to pity. It is not the first time she has looked at him this way, and it is not the first time he has felt the weight of her gaze. To her, he is a man apart, a figure to be avoided but also acknowledged. She knows the importance of his work, but she cannot bring herself to speak to him more than necessary. To her, he is not part of the community. He is not someone to be seen, only someone to be served. She nods again, her eyes downcast, and turns to walk away, leaving Galvin to his solitude. But as she walks, Galvin cannot help but feel a pang of something deep inside him. It is not regret, but a quiet yearning, a longing for something more, something beyond the grime and the shadows. For a moment, he stands there, watching her walk away, the smell of fresh bread filling the air. He imagines, just for a moment, what it might be like to share in that life, to be part of something other than the refuse, something other than the silent labor that defines him. But a heavy silence settles over the medieval village as the sun begins its slow ascent, casting a golden hue across the damp earth. The day starts with the usual quiet, the soft rustling of leaves in the wind, the distant crowing of roosters, and the quiet hum of life stirring in the homes. But in the small, secluded chapel at the far end of the village, there is another sound, the quiet murmur of whispered prayers, mingling with the faint scent of herbs, incense, and the heavy weight of death that lingers in the air. In a corner of the chapel, behind a heavy wooden door, stands a woman named Elira. The soft light of the morning filters through the narrow, arched windows, casting long shadows on the stone walls. Elira, dressed in plain black robes, is preparing for her daily task, a task that has long since become as much a part of her as the air she breathes. She is the corpse washer, the woman who tends to the dead, preparing their bodies for burial, scrubbing away the signs of decay and ensuring that they are presented in a manner worthy of the afterlife. Her hands, once smooth and delicate, are now rough and calloused from years of handling the bodies of the deceased. She has seen countless bodies in her life, bodies that tell the stories of those who have come and gone, of lives lived and lost. But no matter how many she prepares, no matter how many souls she tends to, she never grows numb to the solemnity of the task. The work is as sacred as it is grim. In this village, death is not a thing to be feared, but a passage, and it is Elira's duty to guide these lost souls toward their final rest. Today, as always, there is a body to be washed. Elira stands over a simple wooden table in the chapel, her eyes fixed on the lifeless form that rests upon it. The body is of an old man, his skin pale and lifeless, his features frozen in the final expression of his long, laborious life. The smell of death hangs heavy in the room, mingling with the scent of the herbs Elira has placed around the body to mask the odor of decay. The man's hands are stiff, his body cold. The process of washing him will be both cleansing and ritualistic, a final act of respect, a final gesture to ensure that his soul is prepared for its journey. Elira moves with a quiet grace, though there is no trace of the hesitation that once marked her early years in this role. When she first began, as a young woman with little more than a desire to serve, she was overwhelmed by the intimacy of the task, the closeness to death. The first time she had bathed the body, her hands had shaken, and her heart had raced with the fear of doing something wrong, of not treating the dead with the reverence they deserved. But time has dulled that fear, leaving only the certainty of her role. Now, she moves with practiced ease, her hands sure and steady, as she begins to wash the old man's body. The cold water splashes softly against the skin as Elira dips her cloth into the basin, wringing it out before gently applying it to his body. The water is still and dark, thick with the residue of the day's work. The man's skin is cold to the touch, his muscles rigid and unyielding. Elira's breath catches in her throat as she begins to scrub. The task is sacred as it is sorrowful. Her fingers press into his skin, cleaning away the grime of life, removing the dirt and sweat that had clung to him in his final days. With each stroke, Elira feels the weight of the years pressing upon her, not just the years of her own life, but the years of all those whose bodies she has washed. She has seen the lives of men and women of all ages, from infants to the elderly, from those who have lived full lives to those who have passed far too soon. Each body is a story a testament to the fragility of life. And yet, no matter how many times she performs this task, no matter how many bodies she prepares, the truth remains the same. Death is the final end. It is the one certainty in the world, and it waits for no one. Elira moves a cloth carefully across the man's chest, her hand steady, but filled with quiet reverence. She washes his hair, careful not to disturb the delicate balance between care and duty. The smell of the herb she has used to mask the decay mixes with the scent of the water, and for a moment, the smell of death fades into something almost sacred. The ritual of washing is as much a spiritual act as it is a physical one. It is a rite of passage for the dead, a final cleansing that will prepare them for the journey to the afterlife. As she works, Elira cannot help but reflect on the nature of her task. To the villagers, she is a figure both revered and feared. She is the one who tends to the dead, who prepares their bodies for the final rites. Her work is necessary, but it is also a work that few truly understand. To wash the dead is to confront the inescapable truth of mortality, that all who live must eventually die, and that nothing can halt the process. For Elira, it is a reminder that life is fleeting, that all the struggles and triumphs of the living will one day come to an end. But there is also something beautiful in this work. In preparing the body, Elira is offering the dead the same respect she would offer to a living person. She is not simply cleaning a body. She is preparing a soul for its journey into the unknown. Her hands may be the ones that scrub away the dirt, but it is her heart that guides her through the task. She treats each body with the same care, the same reverence, regardless of the circumstances of the person's life or death. The dead, to her, are no different from the living in their need for dignity, for respect, for grace. As she finishes washing the body, Elira stands back for a moment, her eyes closed in silent prayer. She murmurs a prayer for the man's soul, wishing him peace on his journey into the afterlife. The words come easily. The prayer is as familiar to her as the rhythm of her daily work. She speaks not only for the dead but for herself as well, a reminder that her own life is fragile, that one day she, too, will be a body upon this table, awaiting the same ritual, the same reverence. The body is now clean, its skin pale but dignified in its final rest. Elira moves to gather the linen sheets that will wrap the man's body, preparing him for burial. The cloth is simple, unadorned, as is the man's life. There is no grand ceremony, no elaborate display, just a simple burial, a quiet return to the earth. The ritual is not about the body. It is about the soul. It is the soul that matters in the end. As she finishes her work, Elira steps back and looks at the body one final time. She feels a wave of sorrow wash over her, but it is not a sorrow born of fear or sadness. It is a quiet sorrow of someone who has witnessed countless lives pass through this world and knows that, eventually, every soul must depart. She has seen the old, the young, the sick, and the healthy, and though each death is different, the truth remains the same. Life is a fleeting thing, and death is always waiting in the wings. Elira leaves the chapel and steps out into the cool morning air. The village is just beginning to stir, the sounds of life beginning to fill the streets. The bells of the church toll softly, signaling the hour for morning prayers. The villagers, wrapped in their daily routines, do not know the work she has done, nor would they want to. Her task is one that exists in the shadows, unseen and unspoken, but she does not mind. Her work is not for recognition or praise. It is simply what she does, day after day, out of duty and reverence. As she walks through the village, Elira's thoughts turn inward. She has often wondered what lies beyond this life, what awaits the soul after death. The monastery where she has lived for most of her life speaks of the afterlife with certainty, but Elira knows that no one truly knows the answer. Still, there is comfort in the ritual, in the tradition of washing and preparing the dead for their final journey. It is a belief that transcends the individual, connecting her to the greater whole of humanity, to the cycle of life and death that binds them all. The village is waking now, the sounds of children laughing and mothers calling their children to breakfast filling the air. It is a simple day, one that will pass like all the others. But for Elira, it is another day spent in service, another day spent honoring the dead and preparing them for their next step. She knows that one day, she too will join the long line of those who have passed, and she hopes that when her time comes, someone will treat her body with the same dignity, the same care, and the same respect she has offered to those who came before her. In the quiet of the morning, as the village comes to life around her, Alira continues her walk, the weight of her work still lingering in her heart. She is a woman who lived between two worlds, the world of the living and the world of the dead, and in that space, she finds her purpose. The early morning light is faint, struggling to push through the mist that hovers low over the village. A soft, gray fog clings to cobbled streets, wrapping everything in a cold, damp embrace. The air smells of earth and decay, the scent of the night's rain still lingering in the cracks of the stone walls and the old wooden beams of the houses. Silence hangs heavy, save for the occasional distant crow of a rooster, announcing the dawn of another day. In the dark corner of the village, where the streets bend into shadow, a man stirs. His name is Eamon, but the villagers know him only by his grim, unspoken title, the Rat Catcher. It is a job that no one envies, yet it is one that must be done. He is a silent figure who haunts the edges of the village, moving between the shadows with his long, crooked staff, his small cage of traps clinking against his side. His task is simple, yet unpleasant: to rid the village of its vermin, to control the swarm of rats that infest the homes and stores, the fields and barns. They are the creatures of filth, the scavengers that scurry through the night, feeding on the waste of human life. Eamon's work is crucial, but it is also thankless. The rats are a constant threat, their numbers growing every year, especially after the harvest, when the abundance of food drives them into the homes and hearts of the village. They gnaw through grain sacks, feast on scraps of meat, and spread diseases like a plague. They are the unseen enemies that gnaw at the very foundations of the village, but Eamon is the one who deals with them. He is the one who enters the dark, damp places where others fear to tread. Today, as always, his work begins before the sun has fully risen. The village is still asleep, its doors shut tight, its windows dark. The streets are empty, save for a few dogs sniffing around for scraps. Eamon moves quietly through the alleyways, his boots making no sound on the damp cobblestones. His long, dark cloak billows behind him, his hood drawn low over his face. In his hand, he grips a long staff, one end capped with metal spike, the other with a cage of small wooden traps that rattle as he walks. The smell of the rats is unmistakable, a sharp, musty scent that clings to the walls of the houses, to the corners of the streets. It is a scent of disease, of filth, of rot, and it is to this place, these shadowed corners, that Eamon must go. He knows the homes of the wealthier families by heart, the places where the rats are most numerous, where the grain and the meat are kept. He begins at the edge of the village, making his way down the narrow alleyways and lanes, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The rats are clever, fast, and relentless. They come in the night, feasting on the food that has been left carelessly out, and it is in the darkness of these early hours that Eamon finds his prey. The traps he carries are simple, small wooden boxes with thin slats that close when a rat enters. He knows where to place them, where the rats are most likely to scurry, and he moves with quiet precision, setting the traps at the bases of walls, beneath the steps of doorways, and along the edges of the barns and storerooms. As he sets the last trap, he pauses for a moment, listening. The streets are still quiet, the silence broken only by the occasional scurrying of rats beneath the floorboards of the houses. The night is still heavy, but he knows that soon the village will stir. The people will rise from their beds, begin their daily routines, unaware of the invisible enemy that has been lurking at their heels, waiting to strike. Eamon's work is not without its dangers. Rats, driven by hunger and fear, can be vicious, especially when they are cornered. He has been bitten many times over the years, the small, sharp teeth sinking into his skin with surprising force. The wounds are always painful, but it is not the physical pain that haunts him. It is the knowledge that the rats carry with them the threat of disease. The Black Plague, which had swept through the village years ago, is never far from his thoughts. He remembers the bodies piled high in the square, the faces of the villagers as they wept over their loved ones, their homes, their lives. The rats had played their part in the spread of that sickness, and though the plague is past, the memory of it lingers in the corners of his mind. But for all the danger, Eamon does not hesitate. This is his job, his duty, and he has come to accept it, just as he has come to accept his place in the village. He is an outcast, a shadow on the edges of the community. The villagers, while grateful for his work, keep their distance. They do not speak to him unless it is necessary, and they rarely look him in the eye. They are repelled by his grim task, by the fact that he spends his days in the darkness, surrounded by filth and death. Eamon has long since stopped expecting gratitude or recognition. The village needs him, but they do not want him. As the sun begins to rise, painting the sky with pale streaks of pink and orange, Eamon sets the last of the traps and begins to make his way back through the village. The streets are slowly beginning to wake, the sounds of doors opening and children shouting in the distance. He walks silently, unnoticed by the villagers who pass him by, heads down, eyes averted. They do not see him, and he does not expect them to. He has learned to accept the isolation of his life. He is the man who deals with what others cannot, the one who faces the unseen horrors that lurk in the shadows. His work is not celebrated, and yet it is essential. Without him, the rats would overwhelm the village, their numbers growing until the streets would be impassable, the air thick with disease. But Eamon does not work for recognition. He works because it is his duty, his calling. It is the only thing he has ever known. The hours pass in a haze of repetition, the constant cycle of setting traps, catching rats, and disposing of the bodies. There is no glory in his work, no reward beyond the satisfaction of a job done. As he passes the bakery, the rich smell of fresh bread wafts from the open door, mixing with the familiar scent of rats and decay that clings to him. Eamon pauses for a moment, the warmth of the bakery's hearth drawing him in, but he does not enter. He knows his place in the world, and it is not among the warmth and laughter of the villagers. It is here, in the shadows, where he moves unseen, his presence felt only when the task is done. The morning wears on, and soon Eamon finds himself at the edge of the village, where the field begins to stretch out toward the distant woods. The rats are his responsibility, but the world beyond the village is not. He has spent his life in the confines of this small, sleepy place, dealing with the things others fear to confront. There is no room for dreams or ambitions here. His life is the life of a servant, and while the villagers go about their daily routines, he is the one who faces the things they cannot, the darkness beneath their feet, the things they choose to ignore. As Eamon watches the sun climb higher into the sky, he feels the weight of his work pressing down on him. He knows that he will continue this task for as long as he can, his days blending into one another in a quiet, unremarkable rhythm. He will catch the rats, dispose of the bodies, and move on to the next day. His work will never end, for the rats will always return, and the village will always need him. But in this life of shadows, there is a strange comfort. Eamon may be the invisible man in the background, the one who is never noticed, never thanked, but he is also the one who ensures that the village can continue to thrive. Without him, without his quiet, unseen work, the village would fall into chaos. And so, as the first rays of sun shine down on the earth, Eamon turns and begins his walk back into the heart of the village, ready to face another day in the shadows. The air is thick with humidity, heavy and oppressive, as the first light of dawn barely breaks through the thick canopy of trees above. The forest is damp with the residue of the night's rain, the ground soft and spongy underfoot. In the quiet stillness of this early hour, there is a pervasive sense of unease, as though the earth itself is holding its breath, waiting for the day to unfold. The trees stand like sentinels, their trunks coated in moss and age, their leaves thick with the moisture of the morning. The world around is alive with the sound of birds calling to each other in the distance, the rustle of small creatures moving through the underbrush, and the rhythmic hum of the wind that whispers through the foliage. In the midst of this natural world, there is a man who stands apart from it. His name is Torin, and he is the village's leech collector. His role is as peculiar as it is necessary. Torin's task is to venture into the mire-filled swamps, the marshlands at the edge of the forest, and collect the leeches that will be used by the local apothecaries, healers, and physicians. These small, blood-sucking creatures have a sacred and sometimes terrifying role in medieval medicine. They are used in bloodletting, a practice believed to restore balance to the body's humors, to purge disease, to cleanse the ill. Torin is a solitary man, one who has grown accustomed to the murk and isolation of his work. He has walked these swamps for years, harvesting leeches from the still waters and muddy banks, learning the rhythm of the land and the creatures that inhabit it. He is no stranger to the dangers of the swamps, the quicksand, the hidden pits, the sudden shifts in the ground that can swallow a man whole. But it is not the physical dangers that haunt him. No, it is the eerie, unsettling feeling of the place, the ever-present sensation that he is stepping into a world where man does not belong, a place where the balance between life and death is razor-thin, and where nature holds sway over all. The village is still quiet as Torin makes his way to the edge of the swamp. His boot sinks slightly into the earth with each step, the mud sucking at his feet, reluctant to let him pass. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves fills the air, mingling with the faint, briny odor of the stagnant water. Torin's long cloak, dark and weathered from years of use, billows behind him as he walks. His hands, thick and calloused from years of work, grip a long wooden staff that helps him navigate the treacherous terrain. Hanging from his belt is a small leather pouch filled with salt, a crucial tool in his trade. For salt is used to calm the leeches and make them easier to collect. As Torin approaches the water's edge, he can hear the gentle ripple of the swamp surface, the faintest disturbance where unseen creatures stir beneath. He pauses for a moment, listening to the sound of the forest, the distant croak of a frog, the rustle of reeds in the wind. The swamp feels alive, but it is not a comfortable life. It is a raw, untamed existence, a place where every step is a negotiation with the forces of nature. Torin's mind drifts for a moment as he watches the surface of the water. The leeches are there, just below the murky surface, waiting. They are creatures of patience, waiting for the right moment to latch onto whatever passes by. It is said that the swamp's leeches are unlike any others, larger, more tenacious, their bite capable of drawing more blood than those found in the stream beds or ponds. They are prized by the apothecaries, who use them in their practices of bloodletting, a common treatment for a variety of ailments. But the leeches are also creatures of terror for many, and Torin knows that he is stepping into the realm of something ancient, something that humankind has learned to manipulate, but has never fully controlled. With careful movements, Torin wades into the swamp, the cold, slimy water seeping into the edges of his boots, sending a shiver up his spine. The muck sucks at his legs as he steps deeper, his eyes scanning the water for signs of movement. The leeches are quick, but Torin has learned their habits over the years. He knows where to look, where the water is still, where the leeches wait in the quiet depths, patient and hungry. He bends low, his staff digging into the ground for support, and he begins to work. The first few leeches are easy enough to find. Their dark bodies wriggle beneath the water, seeking out the warmth of the human skin. He watches, waiting for the right moment, and with a swift motion, he dips his hand into the water, catching the leech in a small, flat wooden box. He repeats the process, each time more deftly than the last, his fingers moving with the familiarity of someone who performed this task 1,000 times. The leeches squirm in the box, their bodies wriggling against the sides as they try to escape, but Torin is quick. He sprinkles a pinch of salt on the creatures, calming them for transport. The swamp is quiet around him, the only sound the gentle ripple of the water, the occasional rustle of reeds. It is a lonely, isolated place, and Torin is a man used to solitude. He does not mind the silence of the swamp, the stillness of the morning. It is in this silence that he can reflect, that he can let his mind wander, as it often does when he is alone in the marsh. He thinks of the village, of the people who rely on him for his work, and of the strange role he plays in their lives. To them, he is both necessary and alien. They need the leeches, but they do not fully understand the world he inhabits, the world of shadows and mud and creatures that thrive in the dark. Torin is a man of the swamp, a man who walks between the realms of nature and humanity, and it is a life that has left him estranged. The villagers thank him for his work, but they do not wish to know him. They do not invite him to their feasts, do not call on him for anything other than his leeches. He is a necessary evil in their eyes, a figure of mystery who exists in the shadows of their world. The work is not difficult, but it is draining both physically and mentally. The swamp saps his strength, and the constant hum of nature's raw power wears at his spirit. The leeches are not the worst part. They are simply creatures, part of the cycle of life in this place. But it is a sense of foreboding, the sense that something unseen is always watching, that unsettles him. He has seen strange things in the swamp, things that defy explanation, shapes in the mist, creatures that slither beneath the surface, eyes that gleam in the dark. But he does not speak of these things. He has learned long ago that some things are better left unspoken, and in his quiet, solitary life, he has learned to ignore the whispers of the swamp. As the morning passes, Torin collects more and more leeches, the wooden box growing heavier with each successful catch. He works quickly now, the rhythm of his movements a fluid dance with the swamp. His body aches from the strain of the work, but his mind remains focused. He is nearing the end of his task for the day. Soon, he will return to the village, his catch in hand, and the apothecaries will thank him for his haul. But as he wades deeper into the water to collect the last of the leeches, something feels different. There is a shift in the air, a thickening of the fog that clings to the water's surface. The swamp feels alive in a way that it hasn't before. Torin pauses, his instincts on high alert. He looks around, scanning the murky water, the thick reeds, and the mist that clings to the trees like a shroud. There is no sound, no movement, but something is off. His breath quickens, a small twinge of unease creeping up his spine. Before he can react, the water ripples around him, and a sudden, sharp pain erupts in his leg. He jerks backward, instinctively reaching down to his knee where something cold and slimy grips him. He looks down to see a leech, but not a normal one. This one is larger, thicker, its body a deep, almost unnatural black. It has latched onto him with a fierce grip, and the sharp sting of its bite sends a wave of panic through him. He knows instantly that this is no ordinary creature of the swamp. In that moment, Torin's mind races. The swamp, the leeches, the eerie sense of being watched, all of it floods back to him, and he realizes that there is something far darker at work here, something beyond the simple task of collecting leeches. This place, this swamp, holds secrets that Torin, in his years of work, has only just begun to uncover. With a swift motion, he pulls himself free from the grip of the monstrous leech, but his heart pounds at his chest. He knows now that the swamp has its own rules, its own hidden world, and it is not a world that man was ever meant to understand. Torin gathers the last of the leeches in his box, his hands shaking, his heart racing. As he steps away from the water's edge and begins his journey back to the village, the fog thickens around him, the swamp's secrets pressing down like a heavy weight. He is a man of the swamp, but in this moment, he feels the first stirrings of something darker, something older beneath the surface. The swamp is not just a place to gather leeches. It is a place that holds ancient power, and perhaps for the first time, Torin feels the weight of that power. The morning sun hangs low, just above the distant hills, casting a golden glow over the sprawling stone walls of the castle. The air is crisp with the coolness of early spring. Yet there is a strange sense of warmth in the sunlight, as though the earth itself is breathing with new life. But inside the high stone chambers of the royal kitchens, the atmosphere is heavy with anticipation, filled with the rhythmic noise of pots clanging, knives chopping, and flames crackling in the hearth. Here, amid the scent of roasted meats, simmering broth, and fresh herbs, there is one figure who moves with the quiet grace of a shadow. His name is Galen, though few know him by this name. To the nobility, the court, and the servants of the castle, he is simply the taster. He is the unseen presence that ensures the safety of those who dine in the great halls, the silent guardian of the royal meals. It is a peculiar and often misunderstood role. Galen's duty is one of utmost importance, yet it is a job steeped in secrecy and quiet danger. His purpose is simple: to test the food before it is served to the king, the queen, and the nobles of the court. In an era where poison is a common weapon in the political intrigues of the powerful, the taster's job is to risk his life with every meal. A poisoned dish meant for a king, a queen, or a high-ranking noble could easily slip by unnoticed, and so Galen's life has been one of constant vigilance, of silently sampling every bite of food before it reaches its intended target. The job has a grim reputation. The taster is both indispensable and expendable. His existence is one of unseen sacrifice, a life lived in service to those who do not understand the danger that lurks behind every platter. He is a protector of their lives, though none of them will ever thank him for it. It is a task that does not earn respect or accolades, but instead ensures that those who eat are unaware of the silent threat that could so easily end them. Galen enters the royal kitchens at dawn, his steps light and measured as he crosses the flagstone floor. The smells of the kitchens are overwhelming. The heady fragrance of freshly baked bread, the sizzle of meats over the fire, the rich warmth of stews bubbling away in large copper pots. The chefs work with practiced ease, their hands deftly moving between pots and knives, stirring, seasoning, and preparing for the feast ahead. The air is thick with the heat of the hearths and the scent of boiling broth, but for Galen, it is all familiar. He is used to the noise, the heat, and the hustle of the kitchen. He has spent years here, moving between the shadows, watching, waiting, and listening. He knows the layout of the kitchens better than anyone. The servants know him, but they do not speak to him unless necessary. They respect his silence, his distance, but they do not understand the true weight of his role. Galen moves with purpose, his hand resting lightly on the edge of a large wooden table, his eyes scanning the room for the day's preparations. The first course is already being prepared, a roasted fowl, golden and crisp, with an aromatic stuffing of herbs, fruits, and spices. Galen watches as the cook places the bird carefully onto a platter, ready to serve it to the royal family. His stomach clenches. The fowl looks perfect, but it is not his job to be enamored with its appearance. His task is more macabre, to test for poison. The head cook, a rotund man named Alistair, gives Galen a brief nod. He has known the taster for years, and while their interactions are few, there is a certain understanding between them. Alistair knows that Galen's role is not one that any man would desire, but he also knows that without Galen, the safety of the royal family is in constant peril. "Shall I prepare your portion, Master Galen?" Alistair asks, his voice low and respectful. Galen nods, his face impassive. "Yes, thank you," he murmurs. His voice is barely audible above the clatter of the kitchen, but Alistair hears it and begins to carve the roasted fowl into small, manageable portions.